So how long does it take you to do yours?
It should be streaming now, so like almost instantly, basically.
Okay. So all right,
How's your heads up, Stephen?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we are live right now
You
on
are live
my channel anyway.
on your channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit the record button. Hey, I'm gonna hit the record button, and away we go.
Cool.
Just make sure that all that stuff is good. Oh, it is not good. Okay. All righty. Here we go. All right, here we go. Welcome to CA. Today is Sunday, August 2nd, 2020. I am Michael. Sadly, Dean is not able to be here. As we said before, as young kids, they ruin everything. We blame them. But luckily, today for the show, I should also say this is episode 115. Today, I'm really excited about today because on the show we've got Rib, who, as you're aware, in talking through all the different stuff, was my tag team debate partner for now 3 debates on Modern Day Debate, which have been buckets of fun. And also we have
That's a way of
Ribs.
saying it, yeah.
What's that?
That's a way of describing it, yeah.
Well, I'm glass half full. I'm doing very glass half full.
Okay.
And then also with us is Ribs call-in show partner / podcast partner / YouTube partner, Kevin. So Rib and Kevin, welcome to the Canadian Atheist.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got I didn't prepare, just for everybody listening, I didn't prepare any news or anything because we got a metric fuck ton of stuff to talk to.
Oh yeah.
Without need of any other stuff. Besides, it'll just give us excess for all the dumb shit Christians say, and we'll just add it on to the next show. There's no shortage. There's no shortage ever.
Oh, I doubt that.
Yeah. So okay, so let's get into this. First, Kevin, nice to talk to you for the first time. We met officially about 8 minutes ago, guys.
We did. I've seen plenty of correspondence going back and forth because I don't know if you're aware of that, Michael, but I have access to that email as well, the REB email. So I've seen the behind the scenes a little bit. So you're a very patient person.
Setting up of the debates and everything else. Yeah.
Right.
Michael, you're a phenomenally patient person. I've seen that in the back and forth. So fair play to you for that.
So I'm gonna get my wife up here so she can hear you say that. Because that's not the overwhelming consensus. No. She's but she certainly puts up with a lot of my bullshit. Here's hoping that vulgarity is okay on your channel because I've already dropped the F-bomb.
Oh yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
Good.
You're joking.
Sweet.
We're Irish. It's like part of our language.
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, and for everybody who's listening, we are, we're having a conversation in English, even though some may argue that Irish isn't English. It's funny. I had said to Rib before that my niece is now engaged to a man. His name is Ronan Shannon, and to that Rib said, "Fine Irish name."
Yeah,
and
it is a fine Irish name. Yeah.
It is.
And but it's funny because I've seen their family get together, and I need the fucking Star Trek Universal Translator. Can't understand a fucking word they're saying, because it's like house music, right? When the house music starts, it's not necessarily high, but then it gets into the higher beats per minute.
Yeah.
And within what I've noticed, when you get a bunch of Irish people together talking, the words per minute go up.
We tend to speak very quickly.
What the fuck did you just say? Is common for us when we're having these discussions. So hey, this is also a first time. Everybody listen to the CA. We are right now simulcasting onto Rib and Kevin's YouTube channel. So this is going to be super interesting. He's never done that before. So yet another opportunity for people to see my ugly mug. But getting out there in another platform. And I will say for Rib and Kevin, welcome to our worldwide audience. I ran some metrics just this week, and the last 3 episodes, It was actually 4 because I did one with Shannon, my wife, last week because Dean and I weren't able to get together again. But the average for the debates, the 3 debates we did, we averaged downloads from 97 countries and an average of just over 11,700 downloads per.
Shit.
So I was really happy
That's
about
very
that.
well done.
That's insane.
I'm hoping that that it drives a lot of traffic to you guys, and I'm also hoping it drives a lot of traffic to James, because James is awesome and I love him.
Yeah, big ups for you having us nobodies on your channel, so we do appreciate that.
Well, it's funny. Almost everybody's heard this before, but I'll say it again for people that may not be aware, that are going to be seeing it through your channel. We started this little thing a little over 3 years ago, and we got really lucky early on. Most people are aware of Armin Navabi, who's the head of the Atheist Republic Facebook page. I met him at Imagine No Religion 7 in Toronto a few years back, and he came on the podcast, and then he blasted our podcast out to his worldwide audience, and that's why it exploded at like it did. So huge thanks to him, and he was on Modern Day Debate just a few days ago. Actually, yep, he was debating whether or not white fragility exists. No, whether or not white privilege was a thing.
I was just going to say, because the white fragility thing was the Milo. Yeah, Milo was back.
Which is upcoming.
He's back.
I think it has some.
Yeah,
I
Milo
think
Yiannopoulos is back. He's doing a debate on MDD. Yeah, it's the date might be wrong, but I think it's the 7th or 8th. So like it's only in like a couple of days. Yeah, it's like
has he done anything in the past 3 years? I don't think he has really.
So.
No, since he got cancelled off everything.
Yeah, I mean, he did kind of drop off. Off. So it'll be interesting to see him back. I'm curious as to what he has to say. I mostly don't care, but I'll be curious to as to what he has to say. Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of the background on how we got going, and we've been fortunate enough to have some great guests on the program. Anybody who's watching your YouTube, you can send us an email to ca@rogers.com. Love to have you on, especially if you happen to be a believer. Love listening to deconversion stories and getting into a little bit of that. And also, if you're a non-believer and you have something like a YouTube channel or something, or a podcast you want to promote, come on and we'll talk about that too. So Rib, Kevin, let's jump into the fuckery that was the last 3 debates.
Yeah.
Do you want to go in order, like 1, 2, 3, or?
Yeah, I think we should do them in order. We should tackle the first one, then the second one, then the third one, because I kind of had. I don't know how you felt, Michael. Kevin, I know that I'm sort of excluding you. I know that you were just a viewer, and you probably had like different reactions to to all of them. But I definitely did kind of walk away from all 3 with like different reactions or different takeaways, I guess. Yep. So for the first one, I thought it went very, very well. I was extremely nervous at the start, only because like it was the first debate that I had done on MDD, and right. Kevin was there, and he was watching, and I had messaged him after my opening, and I was just like I'm just ridiculously nervous. I'm kind of freaking out a little bit, and Kevin was just like, just picture or try and put yourself in, like, these are just 2 callers into the show. And after that, like, instantly I just like completely relaxed and was just like, right, okay, look, at this is, just try and fake it till you make it sort of a thing of just like, this is not a big deal, it's nothing, it's just have the conversation. So I
thought you did very well, to be honest, in the first one. Like, obviously there were those jitters right at the start, but once you got past that, you flew it like. So
yeah, I mean, it had only been my second time on MDD. The first time was with Darth Dawkins, and I'm not sure how much that counts. Because he's a fuckstick of epic proportions. Yeah. It was very interesting, and it was funny because in all the chatter we had beforehand, because we would go, and for anyone who's not been on MDD before, basically you log into the Zoom call, and we kind of everybody kind of chats for a few minutes before James goes live. Yeah, and it's interesting because there was almost a sense of camaraderie, especially prior to the first debate. Rib, you had said, "Oh, here's hoping after this, we can all sit down and have a pint or something." Like you said something,
yeah.
Right? And after the third debate, I was like, "Fuck you guys! I never want to see you again."
Yeah.
And very much like that, I wouldn't piss on the best part of those two, because we wouldn't be able to find the best part of either of them. But it was unbelievable. Like, we went from this degree of camaraderie to, in the third debate, I'm anti-Semitic and I'm racist.
Yeah,
that was disgusting. That was disgusting to watch.
And a rape apologist.
And you
both
were the rape. I was too.
Yeah, both of us. Both of us. Yeah. He called us, what was it, like defending rape culture or something like that? He had said, and then both of us asked, which was like, when did we defend rape? Like, it literally never even came up. Like, you're the first person who brought up rape culture. So like, how you're like, it's
Well, let's switch back to the first one. So I mean, I think it was interesting. One of the interesting parts of it was we hadn't really, like, we collaborated a little bit beforehand, but I don't necessarily think we found our stride until the beginning of the second one. It was still, I believe it was still very well done. The takeaways that I got from the first debate for me was, they didn't at all demonstrate a fucking God exists.
Yeah.
Like, period, end of sentence.
Yeah.
And I was also surprised that none of them pounced on me for saying your God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by that. And I think actually when we chatted afterwards, you're like, I can't believe they didn't go after you for that.
Yeah.
Hindsight being what it is, I think I've come to an understanding as to why they didn't do that. And it's because neither one of them has a fucking idea what the Bible says. And I read the Bible all the fucking time. And not one of the, so John didn't bring up the Bible in the first two at all.
No.
And all
he didn't actually.
And all Smokey said was how I was misquoting it and was misusing it, but didn't actually have the capacity to demonstrate how or when I did that.
Yeah.
And I love the Bible because unlike those guys, became pretty obvious. The only chapter and verse they can quote is what they've been spoon-fed in church.
Yeah.
All they've got. And what I typically say is, everyone can quote John 3:16, but not everybody can quote Matthew 10:34. And most Christians I know can't quote Matthew 10:34 because it's a sticky one. It's one where it says, "Do not think I've come to bring peace. I've not come to bring peace, but a sword." So that's, anyone where it gets tricky, or Luke 14:26, where it says, "If you don't hate your family and hate everybody, you can't be my disciple." Those are sticky verses for Christians, because they have to say, "Oh fuck, this is Jesus talking, and he's not being super nice." But after the first debate, I found that there was this, and it's funny because I did, like I said at the beginning of the second debate, I did what I did in the last one with purpose, because there was no way I was going to let them get away with a generic deity, which is all they wanted to fight for. All they wanted to fight for.
Yeah.
Was a generic deity.
Yeah.
What were some of your thoughts?
I was kind of frustrated because the motion of the first debate was, does a God exist? And the fact that, like, we kept saying, okay, so a God, well, which God? And they just wouldn't say that it was theirs or that it was any other God. They were like desperate to kind of defend this deistic entity, rather than their God, to the point where we had to have round two just for them to defend their God, like the God that they believe in. Which was just very, very odd to me, because, like, if you're there debating that motion, I mean, like, surely you should be there defending the existence of the God that you believe in, not some kind of.
It's also wholly unbiblical, right? First Peter 15 is really clear. Be prepared to give a defense for the faith that lies within you, and do so some say with gentleness and respect or kindness, stuff like that. Different versions say different things, but and when I threw that up at them, all Smokey said was, I'm never going to let a secularist tell me what my Bible says. Like, all right,
okay, so then open your Bible and turn to that chapter, and then tell me what it says, because obviously I can't do it because I'm a secularist, so I can't do it. So you tell me what it says then.
Yeah, I love how everybody's on my YouTube channel, on your YouTube channel, is going to see me as like some kind of like ghost drifting in and out of the
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. If they've just tuned in, we're like talking with fucking Anonymous right now.
I know he's giving evidence on the recent debate.
So what's funny is that obviously
And then Smokey said,
the front of the house faces west, and so unless I could put like a curtain up or something, but that would take way more energy than I have. And I also like to try to maintain natural light. And everybody knows this for the snakes that I have. I like to maintain natural light for them as well. So that's why I don't do that. But so Kevin, here's a question for you. How was it for you as a spectator?
Okay, so the first one, I tried to approach it with an open mind, because obviously I'm biased towards yourself and Stephen on this one. But as I kind of progressed more and more through it, I got the impression that they said that they were Christians and whatever and believers, but the way that they were arguing it didn't make it seem so. It just made it seem like they're just in a point scoring mission. They weren't trying to convince anybody of anything. They're just trying to accumulate as many gotcha points as possible on really tiny little minutiae of details. And that was where I ended my impression on the first debate. And this only kind of grew in magnitude throughout the debates. To where in the last one, as we mentioned, they're even going ad hominem attacks just for out of no reason.
Yeah.
And it was just, it really looked bad on them towards the end. Like as Stephen said, even from a viewer perspective, I was an awful lot more sympathetic towards them towards the start of it, because it is debate. You're there to score points to an extent, but then especially when they opened up their arguments with the second debate, launching into the absolute minutia of genetics and genetic codes and coding, and it's like, okay, so at what point are you going to start proving that the Christian God exists with any of this?
Yeah.
And then, but it was like they eventually tried to circle back to it. That's the impression that they gave, but they never actually would. They just skirt around the issue the whole time. So I know that they're a very disingenuous bunch of people, as far as I can tell, and I'm glad it was you that had the debate and not me, because I don't think I could have held my tongue. I couldn't have held my tongue with those two people.
Yeah,
it was interesting. Sorry, Rib, what were you gonna say? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, because I mean, like, obviously I kind of know Kevin, and like Kevin is, for the call-in show that we do, he's the most patient person that I know. It's not just kind of like out of handiness sake that like we've been friends for 11 12
going
years.
On 12 yeah.
It's just because like of Kevin's personality that he is so like ridiculously patient, and like even when someone will come on and they'll try and say that like, oh, that the Bible says that there was giants that lived and that like they believe this and they like take it seriously, and like Kevin kind of gets a little bit like fascinated by it, and he's like, yeah, but like tell me more and go in, and like,
yeah,
so he'll kind of entertain the bullshit to a certain extent, but there's a very fine line that as soon as that's crossed, it's like, no, Kevin, just like, you will kind of turn on them a lot. And so yeah, I think that kind of fine line was definitely passed maybe like midway through the second debate. So definitely no, Kevin, if you were in that third debate, you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't have done well. like Michael, how many logical hoops do they have to jump through to accuse you of being an anti-Semite in their head? Like, I was like, if there was an international fucking mental gymnastics competition, they'd get the gold medal every fucking time, like, because they're just, it was scandalous. Like,
it was essentially just because I think if I can follow the bouncing ball rattling around in their heads, I think it was because I believe their God doesn't exist. Therefore, I'm not attacking their God. I'm attacking the people who wrote the Bible, and those are the Jews. Therefore, I hate Jews.
All makes perfect sense, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
I got nothing else. which is funny. And again, hindsight being what it was, what I should have said was, okay, well, let's talk about this, because it's like so much of the Bible that we have now isn't even what was around, from those manuscripts from millennia ago. It's all been rewritten and everything else like that. And so how much of it is even left over that is actually Jewish authorship, I don't know. But it was, and actually I sent an email to Dr. Josh Bowen, who I mentioned in the third debate, who's been on the podcast as well, who has a PhD in Assyriology, which I didn't know what the fuck that was either. It's the study of the ancient Near East. And I asked him about this, and he hasn't gone back to me yet because he's had some stuff going on. But I said, can you tell me from a historical perspective now, how much of what we have left can still be ascribed to Jewish authorship? And I'm waiting to hear back from him what he says as far as that goes. But yeah, and that was where I completely lost my shit. And I'm surprised James didn't jump in after I told Smokey to go fuck himself. Because I thought it was interesting. But one of the other interesting points for me was how many times it must be difficult for John Maddox to exist in a world where everyone is dumber than he is, because I don't know how many times, I should have had a clicker of how many times he called us idiots, and how many times, all the other lovely Christian things he said. But it must be just, and then during the third debate, he even attacked James and said, "Oh, James, if you don't know this stuff, you should even." It's like, holy fuck, dude. But it must be. We have to take it easy on him, because it must be hard for him being the smartest person in the world.
Must be smartest and the smugest person in the entire world.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there is literally not a smugger person man. I want to preface this by saying that we have had not just one but two, and a combined total. Okay, so I'm kind of separating myself from you, Kevin, only because like I've had 3 and you've had 2. But a combined total of, I'd say, first time he called, you know who I'm talking about, or like you can at least kind of infer. The first time that he called into the show, what was he on for? About like an hour and a half, maybe?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. So given the fact that I was talking to him for an extra 20 minutes, basically just short of 2 hours, I spoke to Darth fucking Dawkins, and John Maddox is the smuggest person I have ever had the displeasure of ever speaking to.
That is okay. Now, also being someone who has interacted with both of them, that's astonishing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because one of the things that I said, like, we had, I guess it's going on 2 years ago now, we had Cy Ten Bruggencade on as well.
Oh God, I'd say that was fun.
Well, no, what was interesting was because he's a fellow Canuck, right? He only lives about 2 hours from where we are.
Oh wow.
So as I was trying to set it up, this is before the whole non sequitur show debacle a year ago. So I was talking to, at that time it was still Kyle. I was talking to Kyle and saying, I'm trying to set up a conversation with Cy. Would you want to host it? And he was like, and he responded with 2 words, fuck yeah, in all caps. So I started talking to Cy and everything like that. And he said, listen, he said, you're local. He said, I do so many of these things online. He said, but you're local. If I'm going to be on your show, I'm coming to you. So Cy sat 3 feet from me in a chair you can't see right now in our studio. So it was the 3 of us having a conversation. Right. And what I will say is, I mean, one, he is, I mean, I couldn't disagree with someone any more than I disagree with someone like Cy or Darth or someone like that. I believe he is absolutely wrong. But I do not believe that Cy is dishonest. No, I believe that he absolutely firmly believes this stuff. Whereas I think people like Darth Dawkins, I think they know they're fucking lying. I think Kent Hovind knows he's fucking lying. And I think John Maddox and Smokey also know they're lying. They're just
out to get points. Like that's all they're doing. Like, they're debating for fun to get points for internet notoriety. Like that's what they're doing.
But when we sat here with Cy during some of the conversation, he actually teared up. Like when he was talking to us about about what I was doomed for in hell and stuff like that, because of what it says in Mark 3:29, having blasphemed the Holy Spirit. Like, I'm fucking done, according to what he believes. And he actually, tears welled up in his eyes because when we were talking about it, and I said, I've already done this, and tears welled up in his eyes at the thought of, there's nothing I can do for you. You're already lost. And so, even though I believe he's absolutely wrong, I believe he is genuine and honest in his approach.
Yeah.
And now that same impression could not be further away from my mindset when it comes to people like Darth, and when it comes to people like John and Smokey.
Mm.
I was joking around before with people. So, I don't trust people that don't show themselves on video and stuff like that. I can understand why, from an anonymity perspective, you may need to do something like that. But I now understand why Smokey hides himself, because of the shit he says. It's just unbelievable, the things that he says. And Kevin, I'd be curious to get your input on this, because during the third debate, he actually, the words left his mouth. Rib and I asked him I think we asked him the question almost simultaneously: would it ever be ethical to own another person as property? Yeah. And he fucking said yes.
Yeah.
He fucking said, the easiest fucking question to answer in the world: should you ever own a person? And I think you beat me to it. Like, the only answer is no. Yeah. The only answer is no. And he fucking said yes.
Yeah. Well, it was when we had asked him, was slavery moral, or did he think that slavery was moral? And when he said yes, I swear to Christ, I flung back on this chair that I am sitting in so much, I almost fell backwards and fucking embarrassed myself in front of everybody on fucking and some people had kind of said that, like, I was like playing that bit up for laughs. I swear to God, it wasn't. There was an honest to Christ reaction. And Kevin, you know me, so you know that it was. But it's just like, as you said, it's the easiest question in the world. Is it moral to own another person as property? The only correct answer is no. It's no. And he said yes, so it was literally just that, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it was just, I
just put my head in my hands. I think you went back, and
Smokey had from an audience perspective, he had a weird little character arc over the three debates.
Yes,
because he started off being like the reasonable Christian.
Yeah,
maybe that's just because he's juxtaposed against John fucking Maddox. Like, but I don't know. He started off kind of reasonable and someone you could talk to, and maybe, I don't know, maybe arrive at some sort of agreement or acknowledgement that yes, we have our differences, but we see where we're coming from. And then he just fell off cliff. Like, he actually just fell off cliff and ended up, as he said, being accusing people of being rape apologists, of being anti-Semites, and saying that it could be moral to own a human being. Like, so, like, how did this happen? Like, what was his mindset in this all of this? Like,
it's a mystery. But Kevin, like you had said it perfectly. Like, he did come off so reasonable in that first debate. Like, reasonable to an extent.
He still believes there's a fucking man in the sky. Like,
But,
so we have to put big quotes under reasonable.
Reasonable apart from that.
Yeah. But and because I sent it off of the shared email, Kevin, you can go back and check this. I sent Smokey an email asking him would he call into the show, because I thought that he was that reasonable that we could actually have a conversation. And more recently, and I don't care about sharing this because it was what I had said as well. Kevin, you've much more of a kind of announcer's voice than I do. So if you want to just kind of very, very quickly shoot up the shared email there. It was a few days ago, and it's between Smokey and me. The topic is debate. There's 4 emails in there. If you just kind of want to...
Okay, I'm bringing up there now.
Well, this is exciting. Yeah. Read
Yeah,
them.
Okay, that's
so
cool.
I'll read out the one that I sent him, Kevin, if you kind of want to get out the one that
He got back.
yeah, that he got
Uh,
back.
okay,
Okay,
so yeah, you go ahead too.
okay, so the one that I sent was, "Hi Smokey, I was wondering if you wanted a debate on a neutral YouTube channel, officially moderated, 1v1 on the motion. Is there sufficient reason to believe the Christian God exists?" It's different enough than the last two debates that was kind of
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I said, if you want to take me up on the offer, then shoot me back, and if not, then I guess I'll know your answer. And what he came back to me with was.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I dropped the ball and find it difficult to find this.
It should just be there. It's the first couple.
Is it just called debate? The email
Debate.
chain?
Yeah, yeah,
Email.
yeah. The email
Yeah.
exchange. Yeah, and
Okay.
there's
There you
yeah.
go. I would have done this. Am I on the right track?
Yeah.
Okay. I would have done this with you. You could have done one of two things after our debate. You could have recessed and concluded on some of your disgusting, contradictory perspectives, or you could troll me to try and act like I didn't completely annihilate you. Shallow, low thinking, bigoted perspectives. Well, you decide to troll me and troll me in live debates on MDD. If you want a dialogue, you should have gone about it differently.
I just want to pause you very, very quickly right there. So the last debate that he did against, I can't even think of the chap's name, but it actually went for Smokey as far as like ad homs went and stuff like that. It was actually like relatively ad hom free. But I had sent in 3 super chats. I sent in 2 at the very, very start, and I sent 1 at the end. So the first one was, like, why do you ad hom? Like, why do you call people names? Why do you? And I think I gave like 3 different examples. He did a tag team with it was himself and CJ versus T Jump and Skylar Fiction, and he ended up calling Skylar Homo Santa. Because Skylar has like he's a relatively big guy, and he has like a big beard, and it's like out here, so it does sort of look, and it's white as well, so it did sort of, I can kind of see where he's coming from, but it was just a homo bit. It's just like Jesus Christ, you're fucking like you're a homophobe on top of everything else.
But that's where the true colors came through.
Yeah,
it's like because it's funny. One of the things I always reference when I'm talking about this is my wife. Whatever you're talking to someone and you get their first reaction, it's usually their most honest reaction.
Yeah.
So when Smokey said that, those were his true colors shining through. He's a fucking homophobic bigot asshole.
Yeah.
And so there's no ambiguity in that at all. He tried to rein it back and say, "Oh, I meant to say this." Then he's just fucking lying.
Yeah.
He said exactly what he meant to say.
And also, like the carry on he has, like it just detracts from what he's trying to say as well. So it hurts him as much as anything else. Like,
but he doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, he doesn't see it that way. But we can see it how
all rational people. Yeah, obviously it's just making him seem like a bigot. So,
and it's funny. I don't want it to come across like we are these exemplars of everything that is good and rational. And
absolutely not.
Yeah, no, because we're
no.
But when you're talking about things that are so clear cut, like homophobia and things like that, then I have no problem standing aloft that platform and calling myself superior to him. I won't, maybe I won't in other things, but when it comes to something like that, I have no problem taking that stance and saying, I am morally superior to you, because I would never say disgusting things like that, or hold disgusting beliefs like that.
Yeah. So I like kind of said that, and Smokey had said, that like I was getting triggered or something like that because like he had said some like off color things or something like that. The second one that I had said was like why do you point out the fact that your opponents are bringing up bad arguments? Surely if your opponents actually are bringing up bad arguments, like bad arguments are by definition easier to debunk than very good arguments. So if they're easier to debunk, then surely you should just be doing that, not calling them bad arguments. And so it was like basically just kind of like, why do you do that? The last one that I had sent in was something along the lines of Smokey, you just can't help but like, just like, wait and see if I can get the list right now. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Yeah.
Can you? And he pointed out the fact that it was a dodgeball reference, which I'm younger than Smokey, so I'm kind of, happy that he got that one. But yeah, so like after that, he called me a troll because I sent him in three super
Yeah.
chats. So I was yeah, I was just like, what the fuck, dude? If
I was in
you
the audience. I did watch that, but I purposely didn't want to. I didn't comment on it at all. I just kind of sat there and watched. I wanted to try to just pull myself back from it and just try to watch it objectively. Didn't work all that well, but I did refrain from the comments and stuff like that. It was just I found the whole thing very interesting, and I sent Tom T Jump an email just in that I sent you can't comment on Tom's Twitter. You can't send him messages. He has it set up that way. So I sent Skylar a Twitter message just saying, good job, and I sent Tom an email saying, bravo, because his opening line about being an immoral monster and everything else like that. I just sat back and I was just like,
yeah, brilliant, yeah,
just very, very, very well done, the way that whole thing went. So then if we go to if we fast forward to the second debate, how did tell me tell me some of your thoughts on that.
I'm actually just going to leave it over to the two of you to kind of comment first. I desperately have to pee, so
fire away.
I'll just go for 2 moments.
Cool.
Right.
So I'm now the co-owner of the Rib YouTube channel. Cool.
You are.
So okay, so from a spectator's perspective, Kevin, give us your thoughts on that.
Sure. So obviously in the first debate, it was obviously just religion versus non-religion, essentially, it boiled down to. And then through great efforts, I remember the email chain, we narrowed it down to the specific wording of the second one.
Yep.
Which was specifically against the Christian God. And it struck me that they still didn't reference the Bible or try to use any specific references as to why the Christian God, why there was evidence of said God, even though that was the agreed terms of that debate.
Yeah.
Do you know, they tried to, even when it was not nailed down to it, they tried to keep it broad, because by keeping it broad, that's the only way they still have any semblance of making any kind of decent argument.
Yeah, it was interesting because when they started that out, again, Maddox did the first opening bit about trying to relay the foundation of God, and then apparently Smokey was going to come in and say, and here's why it's the Christian God.
Mm-hmm.
I sat there, like a starving man, waiting for him to actually, okay, but you still haven't said anything yet.
No, he didn't. He never got around to it.
Yeah, there was never one bit. I mean, John went back to, and I referenced the third debate in my opening. I'm like, I wonder how he's gonna try to tie 500,000 base pairs into this, because
it's all their proof of the Christian God was nitpicking minutia of science.
Yeah.
That supported their claim, and never actually relaying it, and that's why the Christian God is that. They didn't do the second part ever. They just did enough to throw some degree of shade against what you were about to say, but they didn't do anything to support their own point. They just talked nonsense.
Yeah, no, very true. Thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of felt that was a recurring theme across the three debates, was that they like kind of like didn't they like just kind of said stuff, and they acted as though they've destroyed our arguments or whatever other words that they used, but they never actually kind of like did. It was sort of like you went out to dinner and you had the starter, but you didn't have the main course or the dessert. You kind of started it, but you never followed through. You know what I mean? Like, you never had the rest of it. So it was just odd that was one of the main themes that was kind of coming across.
Did you ever go back and look at some of the comments?
Yeah.
I did. And one of the things that I found interesting was one of the overwhelming themes within the comments section was, can't you find better Christians?
Yeah.
I found that very interesting. And I'm not gonna dog James at all. For that. I mean, it's, there's a forum that James has set up for people that have been on his platform multiple times, and you can go in and you can say, okay, here's, suggest a topic and put your name next to it and stuff like that. So that's how the four of us, kind of got paired together, right? And it was just, but I don't know that I've ever seen two Christians reference Christianity so seldom in a Christian debate.
Yeah.
It's like none of them went near the Bible. None of them went fucking near the Bible.
No.
I'm no biblical theologian. I only play one on TV. But I can sit there and I can go, at least toe to toe for a degree of time with people when it comes to scripture. And it's like they didn't want to go there. They didn't want to talk about the Bible, which is odd for Christians.
Yeah, their goal was entirely to just refute what ye were saying, as opposed to making a decent point about their own claims.
Yeah,
they didn't. It was all attack. It was all attack and no building up your own position. Yeah. That's all it was.
Yep, agree. Okay, so then if we move on to the third lovely,
the third debate,
part of the interaction.
The third debate, kind of going into it, I will say that I was on probably my worst behavior, because I knew that it was the last one, and I knew that it was like one of the last times. I had kind of gone into this one thinking I'm never going to talk to John again. Like if James comes back and says, will you do a 1v1 or a 2v2 or something, but John is there, I'm going to be like, I'm going to be extremely hesitant to do that, just because I would kind of see that as like a form of self-harm, of just like, I know what this is going to be, and I know like why would I do it to myself, just like, why would I do that? So
conversational equivalent of running headfirst into a concrete wall.
Exactly, yeah. Having left it, I now know that I will never want to speak with Smokey ever again.
Yeah.
So I like did just kind of I instantly kind of pulled him up on bullshit. I was making comments. I called him a dumbass like several times throughout the debate. I said it somewhat quietly though, so I don't actually think that it was like picked up, but there was just kind of like several stuff like that where I was just like, you know what, it's the last in the trio, so fuck it, I'm just going to be.
From a viewer perspective, what struck me was how often James had to intervene.
Yes.
Oh my god! Like, I've seen a good few of modern day debates like videos, and has he ever intervened as much as with these two fuckwits?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think
genuinely
either.
don't think so.
They couldn't.
I've watched entire debates where James just sits there and just watches the live chat, because he like the two people are like generally respectful. They might they might like overtalk or something like that, but like for the most part they're kind of well behaved, and they'll be courteous to who they're talking to and stuff like that. But no, it was it was the fact that it was Smokey who went to say something, and James just said, hold on a sec, I'm talking still, and I was just like,
I heard that, yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, he did that with Maddox once too. He's like, I'm still talking.
Yeah.
And I think it was because, and this is, I could not be more projecting than this, but having when James was on the podcast earlier this year, and I reached out to him because just of what a genuine human being he is. He is, he's one of those people. Like there are a few people that I've interacted with that I think to myself, if if this guy, Jesus, and I'm not necessarily convinced either way that he was a real person, and I don't think it matters, but like James is one of those people that I really believe in his real life tries to exemplify those attributes and properties. Like he really tries to be, to apply the, principle of charity, to be, accepting and forgiving and accommodating in these types of things.
Mm.
And I think, and again, total projection, but I think there was a degree of, I can't believe you guys are representing Christianity. I'm a Christian and I'm embarrassed that you're doing this.
Could be a bit of that, yeah.
Because of how, and it's a kind of a trigger word in 2020, but because of how deplorable they were in their mannerisms, in their conduct and everything else, that I think he lost patience with them fairly early on in round 3.
They just didn't have any manners, like let alone anything else, let alone the content. At the very basic, there was no manners on them. I'm sorry, that's a very Irish kind of thing to say, like, but they don't. Nobody taught them how to have a conversation. Like, you let the other person finish to a degree. I know it's debate. I know there's going to be a bit of cutting over and all that, but fuck me, like that. Fuck John Maddox fella cut over every other word that you tried to say, like.
Which is when, because like I had kind of picked up on that, especially in round 2, that he did kind of tend to kind of cut off people, and again it was just because it was the last debate of our trio, where I kind of said to myself going into it, if he interrupts me, I'm going to call him out. Like, I'm going to call him out, which is why, like, there was like several times where I was just like, I'm still talking, and like kind of forced James to moderate, but like to say, like, no, like, carry on, like, So yeah, it was weird. Like this is gonna sound like an odd sentence, but it was weird to see James moderate, because there's been several debates where, as I said, he does just sit there and just watch the live chat.
Yeah,
and it was just weird to actually see him moderate when you've seen how good it can go. To be the kind of opposite of it. Yeah, no, it was just odd.
And I think it's because, like I said, I think he realized that they didn't have the capacity to offer any kind of principle of charity. And it's like when I it's like at one point, when I asked them to try to steelman our position, and they
couldn't do it.
They wouldn't even try. They didn't even try. And so I think when you see things like that, it's like I've heard other people say this a lot of times, but when you're talking, it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did the middle of my sentence interrupt the start
of yours? Yeah, I've used that line so many times.
And things like that, where it's just like, and there's none of that give and take. And it was if anything, it was a clear example of de-evolution throughout the three talks.
It really was like,
to where in the third one and been like, I pound on your chest, but if I would have been in the same room with Smokey when he called me anti-Semitic, he would have been counting teeth. Which is, like, oh, and I'm sure he'll see this and he'll go, oh, here's, but which is, and again, I'm just saying it just to be controversial, but it's just, I can't, that's one thing that I won't put up with, is when someone says, like, because those are, it's like during the Inquisitions being called a witch, right? That's all that had to happen. You were called a witch and you had to defend yourself, and you couldn't defend yourself. Yeah. You were set aflame. And in times like, in the times we're in now, to call someone anti-Semitic, to call someone racist, you can be forced on the defensive, especially when people don't know you. And that's why I preface what I said, it's like anyone who really knows me knows that I don't feel this way. So it was, that calmed me down a little bit, but it was really, really frustrating to watch that bouncing ball go to, oh, you obviously hate Jews and you're a racist, right? So, So switching gears for a second, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to, if anybody couldn't tell, I wanted to make sure that we introduced you guys to our audience, um, and I want to give you guys a chance to talk more because it's all I do is talk. Everybody, shut the fuck up. I wanted to give you guys to talk a little bit because even I don't know, even though I'm sure Rib you told me and I probably just forgot, but how this whole thing started for you, um, what you do, how you do it, and stuff like that, and then we'll get into the how people can reach out to you and stuff like that. But I want to hear. I want to hear your story, and I'm sure our audience wants to hear your story as well.
Um, well, I started out being a dickhead atheist online. I was that guy who was like post atheist memes and get people to comment on them, and then just like start like a comment war. Um, and then it just kind of like naturally just kind of evolved to YouTube. I think I kind of always wanted to start YouTube. I just didn't really kind of know what I wanted it to be about. And so as soon as I kind of found something that I was kind of good at, which was arguing back with Christians, it was just like a natural evolution that I just made it to YouTube. And we started off doing like podcasts where we would just like pick just like a bunch of just random stuff and then start just talking about them, and people would comment in and we'd reply to the live comments and stuff like that. And
This was back in the day, before we had the ability to bring people to add into the call, like as such. Like, we'd had to
yeah,
reply to live comments. So we had to do both halves of the voice as such. Like, but
yeah. So yeah, so and kind of like from that, it was just kind of like, okay, well, we're already replying to live comments, so why not, like get them in, and so it's in kind of real time. And so yeah, it just kind of became a call-in show from then. And we still do the podcast. We do the podcast more than the call-in shows, but yeah.
yeah, pretty much.
It just kind of gave me an avenue to rant and to complain, which is my favorite thing to do. So
yeah. For me, I'm just kind of I like to think myself as the guy that's along for the ride as such. Like Stephen's always the person that's really into religion and theology and stuff like that. I'd have a similar mindset to you guys. I would be atheist in perspective, but I never really put much thought into it. Why? It just kind of made sense to me, or it on the inverse would be true, is in that Catholicism which I was raised in, didn't make sense to me, and then nothing else of that nature made sense to me. So it's like, okay, this is where I am now. But in terms of the show, as particularly the call-in shows, I really enjoy it because it allows me exposure to people I wouldn't normally ever run into in my everyday life.
Sure.
Like in terms of speaking with like especially an American audience, you don't get your brand of, I say I forgot you're Canadian, my apologies. You don't get your North American brand.
I'll always get people that one. You can call me American once, but that's
okay. That's North, but you don't get the North American brand of wacky in terms of religion that you get over here.
Sure,
you just don't, and it's fascinating to hear, and just getting those different perspectives is just so fascinating that I enjoy doing the call-ins, and the podcasts we do are always really good fun. It's a good mixture of some religion stuff, some politics stuff, some just current events, and we generally try to get in new people. We aim for a new guest host every time we do a podcast, so it's always get new fresh perspectives and stuff like that. So it's between the call-in show, the podcast, and the more structured debates, they're the kind of three pillars of the channel that we want to kind of pursue going forward. But so if you do go onto our channel, I'm sure Stephen will provide the links and such of that. You'll see that we only have a couple of videos on there at the minute. we had been doing it going back to 2016, I think it was, Stephen. But because of YouTube bullshittery, for no reason, the fucking account got banned, and no manner of escalating it with Google will get it unbanned. So that's 4 years work essentially down the drain.
Oh fuck, that's brutal.
Yeah, it was tough. It was actually kind of why I started kind of branching out to there was one other channel that's actually live right now. He kind of does like an off-brand sort of like it's sort of like a mixture, like a perfect blend of like an interview and a chat. Kevin, me and you have been on the channel Math Pig.
Yeah.
Oh sure, yeah.
He's interested in having you on, Michael, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
So like we like kind of went to places like there. I went to MDD because it was just kind of like I kind of saw it as like, yes, it was the opportunity to be on like a bigger channel and do more debates and stuff, but it was also kind of for like selfish reasons of kind of like promoting the channel like much quicker than like organic growth would have kind of gotten. So yeah, that's kind of why I kind of went to places like that, just to kind of get the channel kind of back to somewhat of like where it was before.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective as well, it's kind of like a safety net against, for whatever reason, if it does get banned again in the future. We weren't spouting weird, like ridiculous shit. Like we're just talking normal stuff, like the level that we've had on this particular discussion. But I think that we're now we're more focused on integrating ourselves with the network of like-minded other channels, so that if something like this does happen again, at least we have the safety net to draw attention to the fact, and secondly, if it does happen, to rebuild far more quickly. Whereas Stephen, as you said, the first time round it was so organic, it was just people found us by accident through iFunny, that app you mentioned that you used to shitpost on.
That's what it was. Let's just call
that's
it.
What it was. That's what it was. But you got very good at it. How many fucking thousands of followers did you have? 3,000 or something like
that? 3.5.
Jesus Christ.
3,500 subs. So I'll actually, just whilst you're talking about it there, I'll go on to, because I still have the app. I haven't been on it in like months, probably. I haven't posted anything in months.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's funny we talk about that. So the first thought is, if I lost 4 years of anything, I'd put my head through a wall.
I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed.
I would just, I don't know how I would react to something like that. When I had, when I was trying to, so just recently, our ISP over here switched the way they were doing things, and they went to this whole new, basically, where everything is internet based. So all of the television is internet based, all of the internet is of course internet based, and so on and so forth. And I went, I ranted about this, I think on Facebook maybe a little bit, but actually I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, I did this whole brand new thing, and they gave us all this new equipment, and so I did a speed test because I'm like, oh, this is the new cool thing, right? So I'm going to test everything before, and then I'm going to see how much fucking way better it is afterwards. So I'm in my little studio here, and I tested everything out. And before I flipped the switch to turn everything off, on Wi-Fi, I was at about 350 Mbps download speed. So switched everything over to, like, this is like way better system, right? It's new. It's the latest, greatest thing, 17 Mbps. And I almost took my MacBook and turned it around and folded it backward. I was like, this, like, and so then when I called the ISP, I'm like, switch everything back. They said, oh, sorry, you can't do that. It's like, it's like taking the, the blue pill in the Matrix. You can't go back. And I'm talking about, no. I said, no. You don't understand. This is only like an hour old. You can unflip that switch. No, we can't unflip. Yeah. Sorry. So I was going through this whole thing, and they had these new routers, and what I had before was I had a mesh Wi-Fi system that like enveloped the house in Wi-Fi, right? And they said, well, you can't use that with the new ones. So I'm like, well, and so then I talked to all these different realms of technical support, and finally I wasted enough people's time in talking to them that I talked to the right person, and they said, "Oh, you can totally hook your mesh system back up." So I got all that hooked up again, and I'm not an IT guy at all. And so now I'm back, and as we're talking now, I ran a speed test in the background, and it's about 380 Mbps. So it's everything's good and solid and stuff like that. But I mean, that was over just like an ISP thing. If I had lost all of the content, like I have 4 redundant drives for all of the stuff that we do on the CA.
We need to start doing that as well, Stephen. We need to start doing that.
We do.
So that so that if my computer exploded, I would have 3 other. I have a cloud backup and I have 2 hard drive backups.
Yeah.
So just because I don't know what I'd do. Like my wife would have to come visit me in the ward. I'd just be sitting rocking, and I'd be
in the padded room.
I'd be talking to my thumb. So it's I can't understand how all that stuff goes, but it totally makes sense, Rib, what you said a minute ago about wanting to get out there. It's like there is, and I'm prepared to admit, I have no problem admitting that it's a little bit of an ego stroke, when you see it out there and stuff like that. I stopped paying attention. One of the things, I don't know if you guys have found this at all, but you get on a couple of iTunes, you get on iTunes, and you get on a couple of other these Podbean and this other kind of stuff, and there are ways to kind of pull all the data together, but it's time consuming and I'm lazy. So basically I started looking at a couple of different ways, and when you put all these numbers together, and when you look at the numbers, like, wow, that's, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the work that like Dean and I have done to get this thing to where it is. So I don't think having a little bit of ego, I don't see that as a negative at all. I don't see that as a negative.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong in being proud of the work that you've achieved. Nothing at all wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can I'll have to reach out, or if you're talking to MathBig, I can't remember his actual name, but feel free to pass along my email, or MathBig, watch this, the ca@rogers.com, and we'll set something up for sure. But okay, so a couple things that I wanted to ask you, and we didn't get into this too much, Rib, and I'm curious as to your standpoint as well, Kevin. So when you come across someone like me who says the Christian God doesn't exist, what are your impressions? Because I take the philosophical, and it's funny because there's the kind of 2 definitions, right? Dictionary definition, lack of belief in a God or gods. Philosophical is more the position that a God, does or doesn't exist. And I take that hardline stance. And it was after talking actually to Steve McRae that I started to delve more into philosophy from this. And I have no problem saying the Christian God doesn't exist.
Christian God. Okay, yeah. I can get on board with that.
Yeah, Christian God doesn't exist.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I think that my kind of gut reaction, if somebody says that, is to kind of do what I would do if somebody said the kind of opposite, that the Christian God does 100% exist, which is 2 words: prove it.
Yep.
Because and it's
then you can't prove negative.
You can do it. Well, you're saying that I mean, not to necessarily put words in Michael's mouth, and you can of course correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you would kind of say that that the Christian God doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so
let me, that's what I'm saying. So if you know that, then show prove to me how you know that. So yeah.
Sure. So for your YouTube audience, I'll go into it really briefly. So looking at the philosophical foundation of fallibilism, being that I can have knowledge without having absolute certainty. It's 3 prongs. First, the Bible is wrong. It doesn't matter what you say, the Bible is wrong. The Bible makes claims that are absolutely demonstrably false, right? Axe heads can't float. You can't blow horns at a wall and have it fall over. People aren't made from dirt and ribs. The sun can't stand still in the sky. It makes claims that we can know and we can show are absolutely fucking wrong. When you're talking about the Christian God, the Bible is all you've got to go on. Okay. So you have to use the Bible as your foundation. When a book makes claims that are absolutely demonstrably false, it puts everything on shaky ground to start with. Second, if you look at the Christian God, its morality is logically contradictory, right? 1 John 4 says that God is love. Okay. 1 Corinthians 15 defines love as kind and patient, etc. Right? That is not what we see from the Christian God. We see him fucking destroying the planet. We see him fucking telling people to kill babies, slice open babies with swords, sending she-bears to maul children for calling someone bald. Now, mind you, I've wanted to do that myself, but I still have. So you have to laugh a little bit, right? So this is morally contradictory, because as someone who I'm sure, Kevin, like, I'm sure you have people in your life that you love, and you would not do these things. And you touched on this in the last episode, where it's like, oh, can you prove someone loves you? Like based on all the evidence, yes. And you would never do these things, even if you had the capacity. So this shows a logical contradiction. And Maddox, who loves logic, would say that, logic. Well, from a logical perspective, if something has a contradictory nature, it can't exist. And third is the absolute fucking fact of evolution. Doesn't matter what you think. Evolution is a fact. Absolutely a fucking fact. And when you tie those three things together and all you have to fall back on is the Bible to reference the Christian God doesn't exist. And from a fallibilistic perspective, I'm prepared to admit, like, I believe I have knowledge that the God doesn't exist. The only caveat that I'll throw in is I could be wrong, but you're going to have to demonstrate based on these three mountains of evidence to the contrary that you've got something to knock those over.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, it's
what's your view on a general theistic other power?
Not evidently. I mean, we don't have, so, and I've referenced this in the debates, and it's not my thought. I don't remember where I read it. It may have been from Matt Dillahunty. But and I'll happily, steal it from him, even though he doesn't love me that much. We are evidently blocked from testing the supernatural and confirming any type of supernatural causation. We don't have the capacity to do any of that. So there's nothing that can even bear any testing. We don't have anything to put under a microscope or anything. So to make a supernatural claim is just vacuous. Could there be something supernatural? Sure, there could be. But is it a God? I don't think so.
Yeah,
yes,
it's sort of
just as likely to be aliens, like, isn't it? Realistically, like.
Actually, I think alien life in some kind is way more probable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
400 billion stars in our galaxy. It is statistically, I think, inevitable that there are other systems with a planet in a Goldilocks zone that where life's not going to be us, right? Like it's not us, but some other type of life, whether it's all, blobs of something moving around or it's all just furry creatures running around. But I think it is unbelievably myopic to think it's just us.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think based on like the sheer probability alone, given the fact that like we've only tested like a tiny fraction of like this universe, just like the odds
tiniest
and
of fractions,
chances
like,
that we are like the only planet
Yeah.
with some sort of life on it. No,
Like-
that's just that like. There are some things where you kind of have to like back them up with like evidence, and you have to kind of like prove like why you've arrived at this. There are some things that I believe based on the fact that it just doesn't sit right with me.
Like the analogy the analogy I like for this one is that, like, okay, you're trying to find a marble on a beach. Do you know a marble? Like you play marbles as a kid.
Yeah.
You play one though. You have to find one of those on the beach. And you take a plastic shovel and you dig into that and you sift through it. Well, no marble there, so it mustn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've only been able to test the tiniest fraction of the tiniest fraction. There's so much we can't see and haven't seen. And, I mean, the way light travels and everything else like that, it just doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it's more likely that something exists. Sadly, just because of the distances we're talking about, humans probably won't discover it before we're gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
it
Yeah,
is
like
kind of that like sad fact. Yeah.
so. It's nice to put a way to put a fucking damper on everything. Uh,
Yeah, I sort of always kind of find the kind of like general conversations between theists to be sort of like a game of tennis or something like that, where you're just like constantly just like swatting back and forth of like the whole thing where like Christians will say, well, like, how did you rule out supernatural causes? I always come back to them with, well, how did you rule them in?
yeah,
Because we don't have a way of testing anything to be supernatural, so therefore we can't, like, by kind of like working backwards, we can't then say that the cause of this was supernatural, because we don't have anything there to test to see if it was supernatural. So
yes.
I'm ruling it out because you can't rule it in.
Yeah. You guys know who that twat waffle Cameron Bertuzzi, capturing Christianity?
Yeah. I was just going to yeah.
Uh, yeah. Um, he's I'm surprised he hasn't blocked me on Twitter, but he's always, like supernatural, supernatural, supernatural. And I've asked him one question probably 50 times. And that is, like he loves Kalam. And more specifically, he likes William Lane Craig's expansion on the Kalam. Because the original Kalam was everything begins to exist as a cause. Universe began to exist. Universe has a cause.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. And the question I'm asking is, how did you determine it wasn't a natural cause?
Yeah.
That's how did you determine it wasn't natural? And of course, he's not going to answer because he doesn't engage. His minions do, but he doesn't engage. He won't engage, and I think that's because he's about as sharp as a spoon. But so he's like the ultimate keyboard warrior. He's got a fucking YouTube channel, all this other stuff, and he doesn't engage with a motherfucker. Not if you don't share his view, he will not fucking engage with you at all, because he's not prepared to answer even a small question.
Yeah,
that's just my heathen opinion, but yeah. Okay, so it's one of the things that's important to me is if everybody listening to this, that's in quote unquote our audience. I'm going to make sure that all the links get into the podcast description on how you can find Ribbon Kevin's Discord and YouTube channel. But I want you to put it out there also, guys, just so that it's people having a record of you saying it too. How can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Type into YouTube RIB debates, because the name of the channel came from the old George Carlin bit. So like if you type in like the name of my channel, you're just gonna get the comedy bit. So like rib debates or something like that, you can type in. Of course on MDD as well, there's me there, all the links there. Discord, my link is, I don't actually think you like, can you search on Discord like to try and find
that was going to be my next question. I know
I actually don't think that you can. I actually don't think that you can. Unless it's like I don't know, unless you like, I don't know, like pay for Nitro or something like that. I don't know. Anyway,
I'll make sure a link is in. I'll make sure a Discord link's in the description of the podcast.
Cool, thank you. So yeah, we are not regular posters at all.
We have conflicting job schedules, and
yeah,
that's just
yeah.
how it works,
I work different days and different times and stuff like that. So it's basically just as soon as I get a weekend free, that's when we go live. So
the fact of the matter is that it needs to both coincide when we're both free, and also because so much of our audience is North American.
Yeah,
it's so like to get a time that is applicable to get call-ins from US Canadian call-ins. It needs to be disgracefully late on our side, like at 11, 12 o'clock at night. Like, so like if I've got work the next day, I can't be sitting up to 3 o'clock in the morning. So
so we start at 11. I think the latest that we went, I think it was the Darth Dawkins call.
Oh my god!
We hung up from that call and we ended that stream at
4 or something.
I think it was closer to 3:30 in the morning.
Half
But
3, 4, or something like that.
yeah, but considering that we started at 11, we had been going for 4 hours.
Like, oh, do
That's
you remember, Steve? Do you remember that we were ready? We were ready to call it a night.
Yeah.
And then Derek Dawkins calls in and talked and wrecked our heads for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
That's
I do remember that.
So okay, so a couple of rapid fire questions. Best caller you ever had?
The giant guy. I love the giant guy.
The giant guy.
I can't remember his name, but he talked about how he believed giants were real and that there's evidence for giants. I didn't believe a word what he said, but it was so fascinating to hear what he thought was real.
You're you're talking about the Nephilim from the Bible?
Yeah.
Or,
that's it. Yeah, Nephilim.
Okay, all right. They're not real. Yeah.
I know they're not real. But it's
my
funny though.
favorite caller, I think, was Doulos. Because we've always had very good conversations with him. We've agreed on basically nothing, but
right.
He was actually able to engage and have a conversation.
Right.
He was a pre-sup, so like it kind of has
That's aggravating.
Change your tactic a little bit or like something like that, but like no, just kind of grading it on the quality of the conversation. I think it kind of has to go to Doulos.
Okay, interesting. Okay, biggest piece of shit caller ever.
Darth.
Yeah. Darth. That was quick.
You said in unison that time.
I got that in stereo on my end. Yeah, he is a special kind of dick. He's when I was on MDD with him, after James pushed the stop button, we engaged for a couple minutes afterwards. He's like, hey, and same thing he did with us, right? I'll send you guys Google Drive with the blah 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 and all that other stuff. And Darth invited me to his Discord, and I said to him, I said,
politics one, yeah.
I don't know what it was.
Okay.
No, it was the atheism helpline or atheist helpline.
That's so that's part of Real Politics. It's like it's his little area that he has in there. He's basically like the admin of that room. So like he has total control, and nobody else in that server who is technically above him can actually change anything that he does in that area. So
he invited me in there, and I said, are you fucking crazy? I said, I could barely get a word in edgewise with you. I'm gonna go somewhere where you're in control.
Yeah, where he has mod powers and he can like mute you and everything at the fucking drop of a hat, which he does consistently.
Yeah, which is the same reason why, if on some weird planet, if we were to ever to engage with someone like Maddox again, there's no way I'd ever go to his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
there's no way I would ever go somewhere where he has the capacity to modify, because I don't trust, and this is weird, but I've had this experience with a few people. I would do it with Sai. Like if Sai had a YouTube channel, I'd go on his channel. I wouldn't be worried about him changing things around. But I had a few conversations with one guy named Ed Dingus. Pardon me.
I've heard that name.
Yeah,
I've heard that name.
He's special. He came on. He was on the podcast twice. He was on once by himself, and then he came on with another guy, somewhat more famous YouTube apologist named Dustin Seegers. And they came on together. And he got super mad. Like he got super butthurt because I wouldn't go on to his podcast called The Reformed Rant. And I said, I do not trust you not to edit what I'm saying to fit your narrative. And I found this sadly with a lot of Christians. Everybody who I do virtually, unless somebody really, I can actually, the only time I've ever done it is with David Fitzgerald, who's an author. He came on the podcast and I asked him a question and he was like, and it was like a solid 5 count. He's like, oh, can you please edit this out? I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. So I edited that part out, but I don't do fuck all editing wise because I'm not that smart. I do the recording, I convert it and I upload it, and that's pretty much it. And I've told everybody, like, anyone who comes on here, you have a fair and equal forum. You will never be muted. I will never change anything that you say or edit anything to make you sound like an idiot. If you sound like an idiot, you've done it all by yourself. But increasingly, after I have these conversations with Christians, like I would never go on Maddox's channel or Smokey's channel because I don't trust them. They have demonstrated demonstrated themselves to have such a low moral character. And that's, some people say that's awful lofty for a couple of atheists to say. But I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't trust them to be honest with the content.
Yeah, well, you're right to do so. Like just the how much they had just stooped in the ad hominem attacks and just the general bullshittery of those 3 debates. Like you wouldn't put anything past those 2 fuckers.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't, like.
Yeah. I don't know. I just felt like it was just I don't know. I felt sorry for James quite a lot, because I went back onto the original video on MDD's channel, and like of the like hundreds of or so comments that were there, like 90% of them were all just shitting on Maddox and John.
Yeah,
like 90% of them. And it was kind of like, you know, like James is a Christian, and it's just like, I've always kind of, I really want to ask him this, of just like how do you react to people like John or like Smokey, who are assholes and who represent what you believe? You know, like are you a little bit ashamed? Like, do you actually want to have them back on? All I don't know. It's just, I did just kind of feel sorry for James.
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I'm talking to a Christian, there's always a few questions, and I always tell them that it's confidential, so I won't share any of the stuff. But there's always a few questions that I ask. Like every time I talk to a Christian, I ask them if they supported Trump. Right. Okay. And I always ask them a few questions, like, you know, Trump supporter, or, you know, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And it's very interesting to hear some of the different answers. And like I said, when I spoke to James, he's just like such a genuine and kind person. Yeah. And like I said before, even though it was me completely projecting, I think you're right. I think that there was a bit of like, fuck guys, like do a better, like I'm a Christian, do a better job of representing me. I truly believe that is the case. The one thing I didn't do, the one thing we haven't done yet, and I wanted to open, because I know this is going onto your YouTube channel as well, but did you have any shit you wanted to ask me or stuff like that? Because I know this is also going out to your audience. Just to like totally fucking throw you under the bus there. Hey, come up with
what got you into this whole being a contrary atheist online?
Well, it's interesting. Well, my wife would say I'm a contrarian in life, but I think it's I do enjoy the discussion. I enjoy the argument, and not for the sake of arguing. Mm-hmm. I am completely okay with being wrong, but you can't just say I'm wrong. You got to be able to show me how I'm wrong. And I'll say this a lot. I remember I said this a while ago. I said, because Shannon will come on, my wife will come on to the podcast sometimes when either, you know, I want to get a woman's perspective on something. We had a podcast about a year ago with a guy who came on saying abortion should be totally illegal in every sense. And I told her, I'm not doing this podcast unless you come on, because I'm not just going to be a bunch of guys sitting around talking about abortion. I want to have a woman's perspective. And my wife is one of the smartest people that I know. And I fucking interviewed Lawrence Krauss. And I'll say that to people, like, and my wife is she's one of the smartest people I know. And so, but she's smart in a way that she keeps me on my toes, and she doesn't let me get away with any kind of bullshit. So she's a barometer for me in a lot of ways. But what really got me into it, honestly, was I'd sat around for a long time thinking, I'm thinking about this. My wife was like, you've been talking about this. Why don't you just start a podcast? And so I sent my friend and partner, Dean, a message like, I'm starting a podcast. Do you want in? And he's like, sure. The next day I went out and bought all the shit, got everything set up. And a week later we did our first episode. And it's been an evolution. of a kind, in that it was first just, talking about different, kind of atheist topics and so on and so forth. And then we took, if anyone listens to most of the episodes, are Dean and I, where I print out a bunch of news stories, and we just talk about the dumb shit religious people do and laugh about it. And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. And then it was okay, let's get some other people involved. We started having some guests on, and it started off with Christians, and that was the most fun, was having Christians on. But I've had other discussions with people. We have the equivalent of Speaker's Corner here in Toronto. It's called Young Dundas Square. And people will go there and they'll get up on their milk crates and they'll start talking about how we're all going to burn in hell and all this other stuff. And they're always on one side of on Young Dundas Square, and on the other side are the Muslims telling about how I need to accept, Allah's and Muhammad as his prophet. And I just want to say, like, why don't you guys work this shit out, and then I'll just talk. I'll just talk with the one of you that's left over. And anyone who is a friend of mine on Facebook, I always do a happy Sunday heathens post, where I'll find something silly about religion, or something that Christopher Hitchens quoted, or Aaron Ra, or any of these other people, and I'll put it out there, and the tagline is Happy Sunday Heathens. And lots of topical things came up there, and discussions and so on and so forth. And so it just, I guess, with same as you guys, it just became this organic thing where the podcast has kind of shifted. And I get asked a lot of times, like, why don't you do it on YouTube? And I'm like, laziness mostly. This is so much easier, and I've gotten fairly decent at this. Dean is the voice of reason. He's more science minded, whereas I, take more of the religious stance and the biblical stuff. I know a little bit about science, but he's much smarter than I am when it comes to the science stuff. And it just seems to flow well. It's also fun to be a contrarian sometimes.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
fun when somebody says, "Oh, this thing," I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like just to watch, the look on their face. I wear an atheist themed T-shirt pretty much 7 days a week. Of course, I can't do it at work with the work that I do. But when I'm not wearing what I have to wear for work, I'm wearing an atheist themed T-shirt. And I've got some pretty outlandish ones. Like, one of my favorites, and my wife's least favorite, is "God is not great" in big fucking bold letters. And she'll be like, "Do you have to wear that one?" And it was funny because, just another side story, I told you guys I never fucking shut up.
Go on.
You're fine, dude. You're fine.
Yesterday we were attending one of my wife's friends' weddings on a Zoom call, right? In the age of 2020, got to limit together, stuff like that. So they were able to have a small gathering, live, like in person, and then everybody else was online. So it was a massive Zoom call with like 200 participants or something like that. And I was wearing my "God is not great." And so my wife and I are sitting side by side, and we have the video on, and she's like, "Oh fuck, you're wearing that shirt." And it was funny because then the woman who was performing the service started talking, and we had the microphone muted, but I'm just like, "What's she doing talking?" 2 Timothy 2:12 tells women to sit down and shut the fuck up. What the hell are you doing? And stuff like that. She's just like, "Oh, man, just yeah." So it's always interesting. But the one I'm wearing, the shirt I'm wearing today says, "I've read the Bible. That's why I'm an atheist." We were in the grocery store about a month and a bit ago, and this woman walked up and she kind of did one of those up and downs, and she's like, "Oh, that's an interesting shirt." I'm like, "Oh, what's interesting about it?" And she said, "Well, I've read the Bible, and that's why I'm a Christian." I'm like, "Well, what part?" And so I started having this conversation. My wife turned around.
In the shop?
Yeah.
Yeah, have this conversation in the shop, like,
yeah,
beside the bread and the eggs.
It was actually in the beer and wine aisle, but yeah.
Oh, it makes more sense.
But I love having the conversation, because I'll say like have these people say, "Oh, why don't you believe?" And be like, "Well, why don't you believe? Like, why is it?" this way. And it's always anecdotal. It's always the same thing. And one of the things that I like to say, for anyone who's been in the atheist game for a while, knows the name David Smalley from the podcast Dogma Debate. He's since kind of gone the way of the paywall, and it's hard to hear or see almost any of his content without paying for it. But before he did that, he used to have he was having a conversation with someone, and one of his taglines was, "Never pass up the opportunity to have a conversation, because the next mind you change could change thousands." And I've always held on to that. And I've always said, like, I don't have the kind of power that sometimes people think I have. Like, oh, you think you're going to change my mind? No, I don't have that kind of power. But I can maybe plant a seed that you might think about. And maybe in a period of time from now, you'll pick up the Bible and say, it fucking really does say that. Jesus Christ. Yeah. And maybe that will be an eye opener. That's it. That's about it. Was that a long enough answer to your question, Kevin?
I know. I kind of preferred it. Wasn't really a good begin, middle, and end, to be honest. Like, but just it's good enough, I suppose.
I'll start over. No. So, yeah, but seriously, anybody who's watching this on your YouTube channel, feel free to send an email. And love to have conversations with you guys. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was really, really great. Yeah. It was a nice to tie up 3 rounds of fuckery. It was a nice way to finally meet you, Kevin. I swear,
likewise.
Dean is not tied up in my basement. He really exists. But there's always, we joke, right? The kids ruin everything, but he has a great family. But there was just sadly something today that got in the way. So I think what we'll do is we're at an hour and 34 minutes. So okay. That's about average for us. We average about 90 minutes.
Okay, cool.
About average for us. How long are you guys normally streaming for?
About the 2 hour mark, isn't it?
Yeah, about the 2 hour mark, yeah.
Sorry to cut you so short.
I know. We're only just getting started. Getting kicked out already.
Could I ask you just one more question, Michael?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
What did you think of Smokey's response in the third debate after the abortion topic, and after I was visibly choked up? What did you think about what Smokey said after that?
He was a total cunt about it. Yeah,
because
it was not hard to tell that you were affected by what was said. And like I said to you in emails, I felt like I could not, like, I accept the fact I could not have known, but I still felt bad because, like, fuck, man, like, here's somebody who through the course of being said, like, what has been said, there has been an effect on this person that I have, developed this online relationship with and that I care about. And now I wish that hadn't happened. He took that just as an opportunity to be a dick.
Yeah.
And he, again, in the same way that's true with Homo Santa, in the same way with everything else that he said, his true colors shone through, and he showed himself to be the wretch of a human that he really is.
Yeah.
Truly, yeah.
I just remember listening to what he had said and just being so thankful that I didn't say anything. Yeah. Because after he had said what he said, it couldn't stop but keep going over in my head of just like, that's what I was afraid of.
Yeah.
Like, had I have actually said anything, and had I have actually gotten like that personal and stuff, like, and kind of, shared why it was such a personal topic to me, of just being like, that's what would, like, I even said it, and to kind of steal the line from, John, oh, I'm a fucking prophet. Like, I had said that I don't think that I'm going to get away with what I'm going to say unscathed, and like there he was, like a fucking exhibit A, to
Mhm.
come out directly after I finished talking, to be like, and here's why you didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I just, it was just, it was almost comical in like a twisted way, because like it's just like, here's what I'm afraid of, and here's why, and it's like
Mm.
it's directly, there was no like gap. It was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, and it's like in the email that I share with you afterwards, and this is not something I'm not telling anything that hasn't already been said before on the podcast. My wife and I, like, so my daughter's 23, like I said, in the podcast, or in the YouTube debate.
yeah.
She My current wife is not her mother, but my current wife Shannon and I, we went through IVF for 7 years, spent $90,000 trying to have a baby, and it didn't work. It didn't work. And so we had to finally stop, and we got a dog. And it was, and so just, to understand that, it's like sometimes these other things, like these other situations happen, but it's not all as neat and tidy. And this is one of the things that gets me about, sometimes, about a Christian's approach to something, is it's so black and white. Like, it's just this or that. It's all nuance is lost. And so when you have someone like yourself who had a difficult situation, like, and I'm not going to talk about, but when what you said in the email, like when you had that horrible situation, and what I will share is our situation, because we had virtually exactly the same thing happen, where we went for, we did the IVF transfer,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife got pregnant, and then we were going for the appointments, and we went for one appointment, and there was a heartbeat, and my wife was elated. She was like, because she didn't believe she was ever going to be able to have a child, and this was the best thing that ever happened in her whole life. And so, really cool. We go for the next appointment, and the fetus is not progressing properly. And so we had spent $90,000, and then she had to stop all of the medication and allow her body to just do what it was going to do, which was to naturally terminate the pregnancy. And that was after going through all this, and all of the money, and all of the, like, having the hormone injections and all these things that we had to go through, and all the medications that she had to be on. The irony is that we went through all of this, and she was given two options. She said, we can either schedule an abortion, or we can allow your body to take care of this like we know it will, because that's just how the body works, right? And she's like, I'll be goddamned if I'm going to go through all this to have an abortion. And so she allowed her body. We decided that, or she made the final decision, but we allowed the body to do, and things took care of itself, that way. And it, sadly, based on what we knew, it was for the best, which sucks. But there's no nuance when the Christian perspective. There's no nuance, and that's a long drawn out way of saying that. But there's no nuance to the Christian perspective, and for Smokey to basically be predatory,
Yeah.
in how he decided to, kind of give that dig, was just the most foul thing a person could do. I would never dream of doing something like that to someone.
It was actually in the email that Kevin, I had asked you to bring up. It was in it was in one of the emails that I had sent back to him. But like all of the things that he had said, not just in our debates, but with Skylar as well. Like calling him Homo Santa and everything else like that, and like the fact that he like went out of his way to like emphasize words like disgusting and stuff like that, and like calling us and our worldview like
Disgusting, deplorable, all those things.
all of these things. It basically like that's kind of how the email went, where I was just kind of describing all of these things and kind of saying a few of them, and it was just like it was leading to this final line where I said I was a better Christian than you when I was one, and I still am.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, without question.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
Being
believe in any of the shit, and I don't believe in any of the, like Christian morals or anything else like that. But I'm exemplifying what your book says to do,
yeah,
and to have empathy and stuff like this more
yeah,
than you are.
yeah, yeah. Far. You are a far better human than he seemingly has the capacity to be.
Yeah, and it was just that, and then the fact that like he he says these things with like a confidence, like he knows that he's right,
Mm-hmm.
and he's saying them as yeah, I don't know, it's yeah, I don't know. Smokey's, I don't want to say evolution, de-evolution from the first to the last one kind of surprised me the most. Just to kind of link it back to the first,
Matt,
topic that we had talked about and stuff. It was, yeah,
yeah. Maddox was
he stayed
he was a
pretty consistent.
yeah, he was a constant dickhead.
Yeah,
Consistently smug and
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hang on just 1 second.
yeah, sure.
You there we go. Something happened there. Don't know what that was. Sorry. Yeah, so was there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I
Nothing else for the
think
minute.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do our little I'll do my little closing out that we usually do, and then push the stop button and then say a proper goodbye offline. So I'm not sure how you want to do yours, whether you want to keep it going past that or whether you want to do the same thing. But at an hour and 44 minutes, I think that's enough trouble for us to get into for this week. We'll be back at you again, hopefully very, very soon. Dean will be back. I promise I'll let him out of the basement, and we'll be back with more irreverence. And there's so much going on that I have a stack of news for us to go through. So it should be lots and lots of fun. But until that time, I have been Michael. This is where you say you have been who you are.
I have been Rib.
I have been Kevin.
And we shall talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.